Welcome to the Promethean Podcast. I'm your host, Maddie Schaffer, and this is a review of the April edition of the Promethean newspaper. The April edition can be found in the newsstands around campus, as well as the online edition is available at uwspromethean.com. On March 20th, the University of Wisconsin-Superior received an executive order signed by Donald Trump that aims to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education. At a Student Government Association meeting, Chancellor Renee Wachter said that they are closely monitoring its effects on student loans. Trump stated at a press conference that after 45 years, the U.S. spends more on education than any other country and yet ranks low in terms of success. The UW system will provide more updated information to confirm whether the president's order will affect federal student aid for the current semester. Chancellor Renee Wachter also hosted a student briefing on April 14th to discuss these changes. The Promethean got the opportunity to cover another event this month featuring Governor Tony Evers. On March 20th, Governor Evers and Wisconsin Department of Veterans Affairs Secretary James Bond held a roundtable discussion with Douglas County veterans in Superior to discuss veteran investments included in his budget proposal, as well as hear concerns from local veterans related to veteran needs. The roundtable discussion took place at the Richard Bong Veterans Historical Center and was hosted by the Douglas County Veterans Service Office. Brian Erickson, a retired Navy veteran and former Veterans Service Officer for Douglas County, spoke about some of his concerns like getting care for veterans, specifically when it comes to veterans struggling with substance abuse, homelessness, and mental health issues. Governor Evers' executive budget includes expanding access to mental health services, affordable housing, and offering property tax relief for Wisconsin's 300,000 veterans. According to Wisconsin Public Radio, his capital projects were rejected on March 26 by Republicans on a state building commission, leading to no recommendation from the commission as the proposal goes to the legislator's GOP-controlled Joint Finance Committee. On March 6th, the Markwood Center for Learning, Innovation, and Collaboration and the Open Education Resource Committee celebrated the launch of 3 new open textbooks written by UW Superior instructors. Lynn Gort, professor of social work, contributes the book Macro Practice for Community and Organizational Change. Rich Freese, adjunct instructor of music, contributes his text People and Music, An Appreciation in History, and Amanda Zbachnik, professor of education, with a collaboration from Stacy Gilpin, former senior lecturer of education, presenting the textbook Nurturing Potential, an equity-minded approach to functional behavioral assessment. The launch of these 3 open textbooks by UWS instructors marks a significant step towards enhancing accessibility and affordability in education. UWS also announced that there is a new club on campus, the Superior Rotaract. Superior Rotaract is a satellite club of the Twin Ports Rotaract and is sponsored by the Rotary Clubs in Duluth and Superior. According to Tucker Briggs, chair of the Superior Rotaract Club at UWS, the purpose of the club is to provide the opportunity for young people to enhance their knowledge and skills that will assist them in their personal development as well as address the physical and social needs of the community. The club meeting times and places have not been decided, but the club aims to do 2 service projects a month. Moving into sports, UWS announced the addition of 3 new sports, 1 varsity sport and 2 club sports. Starting during the 2026-2027 academic year, UWS will add 1 varsity NCAA sport, women's lacrosse. UWS will also be adding 2 new club sports, men's ice hockey and men's soccer, which are expected to begin competing in the 2025 to 2026 academic year. Students who are interested in joining any of the 3 new teams are encouraged to fill out a prospect questionnaire. This questionnaire can be found under the initial announcement of the new teams at uwsyellowjackets.com. Before UWS track and field is able to host a meet this spring, the Superior Choice Credit Union Stadium will house both intramural soccer and flag football, both of which are being offered for the first time at the new complex. The Flag Football League will house teams playing 7v7 on a shortened field in the stadium, with a running clock for the 2 20-minute halves, except for the final 2 minutes of the half. On the other hand, intramural soccer will run in a 5v5 format with a running clock for the entire match. For those interested in cheering on their fellow students during the games, Flag football will be taking place on Thursday evenings throughout the month of April until the playoffs on May 6th, with soccer taking the field on Monday evenings until the playoffs on May 5th. On April 5th, UWS World Student Association hosted the 25th Annual Cultural Night in the Yellow Jacket Great Room. The event started with a social hour which featured live music from DJ Mole Musical Productions. Then further into the evening was dinner, which featured many different cultural foods, and after that was many performances, including a fashion show and a flag show with over 35 countries celebrated. Lastly, the UWS Pruitt Center for Mindfulness and Well-Being has partnered with Live Well Northern Wisconsin. According to UW Superior News, Live Well is now an initiative of the Pruitt Center, allowing both organizations to expand their impact by connecting with the community of Superior. Live Well coordinator and social work professor Lynn Gort discusses that working with the Pruitt Center is a natural collaboration because of their similar missions on improving the well-being of people in the community. Events with the Pruitt Center and Live Well will be posted to the Pruitt Center's calendar and the Live Well website at livewellnorthernwisconsin.org. Thanks for tuning in to this review of the Promethean April edition. You can find the complete online edition at uws-promethean.com or follow the Promethean social media channels on X, Facebook, and Instagram for more.
Today on Superior Today, we're going to hear from the cast of the Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, which was recently performed at the UWS Mannion Theatre. The hosts for this Promethean podcast are Xavier, Walt, and editor Maddie Schaffer from the April edition of the Promethean newspaper, now 105 years old, recently showcased and previewed in the Positively Superior magazine in the May and April 2025 edition. You can find more about the Promethean in the Positively Superior magazine program. Xavier, Walt, Maddie Schaffer with more from the cast and the crew of the Twelfth Night production.
The Promethean Podcast. I'm joined by Maddie Schaffer, and we are joined by today Andy Hill and Elle Evenson, both involved in UWS's production of Twelfth Night by Shakespeare here in the theater program here. I just want to say thank you so much to you two for joining us for the podcast today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, thank you.
The first thing that I want to ask, and this question can go to either one of you, I guess I'll ask Elle first because you're sitting directly next to me right here, is exactly what helped you fall in love with theater. I know you're from Cloquet, you're from the region, which Andy, you're sort of a transplant here, but what made you fall in love with theater?
I fell in love with theater as I was a performer from the very beginning. I remember my mom put me in dance classes when I lived in Mankato, and just from that, I was in love with the stage. So after discovering theater where I can dance and also act and also sing in front of an audience, that just sparked a lifetime love of theater for me.
And then, Andy, I guess I have the same question for you. Again, you're in a bit of a theater hotspot where you're from, down in Brooklyn Center? Yep, nailed it. Not Brooklyn Park this time. I'm going to get that right this time. But you're in a little more of a theater hotspot. So what sort of sparked your passion for performing?
So I started, my twin sister was acting before me. She did a few shows before me, and I kind of fell in love with watching the theater. And she was doing community theater, and they just needed more guys. So I auditioned for a musical, kind of fell in love with it there. Been doing it for 10 years now. And being able to be on stage for those 10 years kind of keeps reinvigorating that passion every time we start a new show and go through that process every time.
Yeah, I'm a little bit newer to the world of theater. I've been in shows for, just about 2 years now that I've known the two of you. And something that, a question that I like to ask, and I get so many different answers for, is what do you get personally from acting on the stage and from theater that you don't really find anywhere else in life? So I guess, Andy, acting for 10 years now, I guess I'll ask you that question.
Yeah, for me, it kind of just started, it was a way to put on a mask at first is probably the best way to put it. You get to play all these different characters, be in these different perspectives that you wouldn't normally get to live. So I started mostly with period pieces, so I set a lot of early 20th century shows. So that was kind of a fun, different perspective. But as time has gone on, it's been more of like the performative and the storytelling. That means a lot to me now. It's my favorite part is being able to tell these stories that can help people through whatever they have going on, and just put it in a more fun and accessible format for people.
Yeah, I'm going to ask slightly the same sort of question to you, Elle, but I'm going to change the language around a little bit because I know you're so incredibly involved in pageantry and already have an extremely successful pageantry career under your belt. What do you sort of get from being up on a stage, whether it is in a pageant or whether it's on stage playing Mariah in Twelfth Night?
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree with what Andy said. Even in pageants, you get to tell a story, and you really, from that, hear about other people's experiences and get different points of views that you might not know about beforehand. And in both ways, pageants, theater, I gain a great collaboration with some amazing people. Both of these arts have lots and lots of dedicated and fun and excited people that collaborate together to make a large project. And I haven't seen anything like it anywhere else. So I really just have a hunger for that collaboration and that teamwork.
That sort of leads me to my next question is, you two have been in, I believe, 3 shows together up to this point now. She Kills Monsters, Almost Maine, and now Shakespeare's Twelfth Night just a few weeks ago or so right here, as I would say 2 of probably the closest working actors that have been on this campus together in at least a little while, and seems set to do that for the foreseeable future. How is your guys' working relationship? Do you have anything to say about Andy?
Oh man, that's a great question. Andy and I have really made a good friendship outside of the stage, but even on the stage, we work together by making a lot of jokes. We crack a lot of fun at each other, and although some person hearing the conversation might think that it's a bit like a brother-sister relationship, you're like this, you're like that, but we all know it's always in good fun, and I'd say that we have a comedic relationship when we work together.
Yeah, I guess I'll ask the same question to you about the pageant queen next to you.
Yeah, no, we have a very strong we make jokes all the time off stage. One of our favorite bits from Twelfth Night is when Elle would carry on a bench, I'd pick up the bar stool we had backstage because I wanted to carry on the bar stool. So that was kind of a joke that persisted for 3 weeks of the show, from basically when we started our tech runs. But we make jokes a lot, even outside of the theater now. We've grown to be very close friends, I would say, often on the stage because of that proximity we've kind of had together, and how many shows we've now done together, especially with Twelfth Night, where we are acting in scenes a lot more than we were previously.
Yeah, you talked about sort of being veterans in this program by this point, again, in 3 shows together, and that's not including the shows that you've been in outside of that. One thing that I've been noticing in the department recently, and I have been a part of this, I've been at UWS for just about 2 years now, is the fairly consistent turnover of people within the theater program and within acting. And when I got here, it felt like it was sort of the old guard leaving and a lot of the new guard stepping in. And we saw a lot of that for Twelfth Night. Quite a few people that took on some of their first roles. I want to say Jake Edwards, who stepped in and really absolutely killed it in his first production. So do you guys have anything that you want to say about either the old guard that are starting to step away, potentially graduating, or that new guard that have really stepped it up? Also a Jack Gilbert comes to mind for his wonderful performance in Twelfth Night.
Yeah, that's a great point to make, because it was interesting the fact that Sean came in as the new director, so he kind of brought this different light to the program, and I feel like that had a big impact on the different people that are playing in each of these roles. And I know as Andy and I are working on this upcoming theater club for UWS, we're hoping that we get even more new and fresh faces to the program. So as much as I appreciate the veterans like Andy and I think it's crucial that we keep encouraging these new people that may have not had the idea of doing theater, that it's something for everyone, and there's something for each and every person.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna change just a little bit and say, Andy, when there's something for everyone in theater, when I interviewed you most recently, you said that you when you started acting, you couldn't really imagine taking on the comedic roles. And as Malvolio, that's your whole thing. Like, you're going to have to absolutely give all of your being into being comedic. And so can you talk to me a little bit about, I don't want to say the transformation, but we'll say the evolution that you've gone through as an actor of the, okay, people think I'm funny, I can make this work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So as I kind of said in our interview a few weeks ago, I was more of a background actor. I started a lot later than a lot of my peers that I went to middle school and high school with, so I had a lot of catching up to do with them. But that also kind of helped me kind of just mold myself into the roles I wanted to play, and that was more just like straight up deadpan comedy, not these over-the-top comedic roles like Malvolio and like Steve back in fall of 2023 for She Kills Monsters. But kind of as time has gone on, I was one of the few people that kind of went through the transition of Kathy to Sean still in the department. So Kathy kind of helped me get that start out looking more at theater more professionally with the professional standards we do hold with Sean here at UWS. But Sean's pushed me to be as big of an actor as I can and to take on these comedic roles, because even if it's not necessarily your type, you don't know if it's your type until you get the opportunity to play those roles. And I think getting that big chance with Steve kind of opened up that brand new type for me as an actor, where I can do these big, loud, comedic, just over-the-top funny roles.
Yeah, you have something that I've noticed about you specifically is your ability to almost be a chameleon when it comes to the world of theater, not even just on stage, because I'm one of the leads in the upcoming Trial by Jury opera here, and you're running our lights and sound, and you've been able to really apply yourself to just about everything here at UWS. And my question for you here is, does this give you a little bit more of an appreciation than you say would pretty much just come surface level? If you were just an actor on stage, you have a little bit more of an appreciation for everything that happens in a production.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that I've grown to be more appreciative of the things all the aspects we've had here. When I was in high school, I kind of just started building the sets because they needed help, and you don't realize how much time and effort and how much like mental capacity you need to be able to build all these sets and make sure it's safe for people to walk on. One of my favorites is when I did Shrek the Musical. We had to build the bridge for the bridge scene going to the tower, and figuring out how that can hold up the weight of 2 people on a limited budget was a huge challenge, but it makes you appreciate all these set pieces. And then kind of this last spring, I started helping with the lights and sound with Ride the Cyclone, the musical we did last spring in 2024. So being able to see that aspect of it and see all the time and the effort that our light and sound designer, Alex Flinner, puts into these shows, I already appreciated him enough just because of how good he was at it, but seeing him work is a completely different experience, and it kind of opens your eyes to all the different aspects you have in a professional theater.
Yeah, it's, as someone that was in Ride the Cyclone, in that musical that Andy was just referencing, you don't, I feel like a lot of people will take for granted how critical lighting and sets are and stuff like that until there's something really grandiose, and that's exactly what Ride the Cyclone was. At one point, there was a spotlight from the ceiling, hits a disco ball on the floor, and sends stars to every corner of Mannion Theater, and it wasn't until I saw that I really appreciated the level of craftsmanship that really comes from that sort of job. So a special shout out to Alex Flinner, who is at the absolute top of his craft.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I actually was in Shrek the Musical when I was in middle school, and I remember it being one of my favorite productions. So I'm curious for either one of you, like, is there a specific theater role that you strive for, or do you have a specific genre per se for theater that you enjoy more than others or favor?
Yeah, I would say I love these contemporary comedies that we've been doing a lot here at UWS. A lot of my background started with these period pieces, and there's a lot less comedy in these period shows because they're meant to be more serious and to retell something that did happen. But being able to go contemporary and do these big fun shows really made me kind of fall in love with that genre. As for like dream roles, my big one is I want to do Waiting for Godot here at some point, just because it's just 2 hours basically of just mindless fun with two actors on stage just joking around. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with the contemporary plays and musicals. Both really just transported me into something I'm not used to, but in the best way. I used to just be well, not just, but I used to drama act always, and I didn't get many opportunities to act in comedy roles until now when I'm playing Mariah, doing tricks and, being just out there. It really gave me a new perspective on the roles that I can play. In terms of dream roles, I've talked a lot about Heathers with Sean. I'm a big fan of the movie Heathers. So the fact that the musical Heathers is out there, I just admire it so much. And I'd love to play either like one of the Heathers or even Veronica. And that's just such a fun one for me.
Yeah, like you said, I think you said that you kind of gained your confidence through these roles. And I'm curious, what do you have to say for people who might be like hesitant to join the theater department, either because of stage fright or because they just don't know like where they fit? Like, do you have any advice for any new people who might be interested in getting into the theater department?
For beginners in theater, it's always good to know that you have a huge community behind you. We all have each other's back, and it's something that you can say, but you never truly know it until you apply yourself to it. And even if someone has a smaller role in the ensemble up to a lead role, regardless of how many lines or your stage time, you're valued equally. So it's such a fun experience. Seriously, it's just a blast. Even if we're at rehearsals for several hours a day, it's just something that it feels like maybe 30 minutes when we're just like having so much fun and being there physically present in the moment. And so just try it out and don't be scared about eyes seeing you, because that's honestly only about 3 out of the 80 days. if you're doing 2 weekends, 4-5 shows max, but you have rehearsal after rehearsal where you're just getting used to it and you have all this time to play around and get your ensemble behind you, and all of this stuff just isn't about the eyes always. Of course we want to please the audience and we want to entertain the audience, but there's so much more to it.
Yeah, to add on too, stage fright is very real. I was one of the people that mortified first time I went on stage and there was an audience. It was an experience and something to get used to. But the nice thing is when the stage lights are on, they're very, very bright. So you can barely see the audience, and unless you know where someone's sitting, it's really hard to pick them out in a crowd. So you don't really see the audience all that well. And if you want to be involved in like the theater department, but you don't like acting, you don't think acting's for you, there are a ton of roles that you can step in and fill, where I'm sure Kevin's always looking for more workers to help build the sets, and he'd be happy to teach people how to do that. Alex would love to have a permanent board op. for lights and soundboard, so it's not just cycling through actors who are available. Our stage management crew would love to have more people helping with props, costumes. So if it's something you're interested in, you can just reach out to Kevin or Sean Naughton, and they'll find a way to get you involved in any facet. Because we're always looking for people. Theater's for everyone. It's not exclusive. You don't have to have experience. As we said earlier, Jake Edwards he's a film guy. He's only acted in films, and we kind of just asked him to do 12th Night, and he did fantastic first time on stage. So you don't need to have these years and years of experience that some of us who have been in the department for a few years now do have.
I think this is a perfect place where if people are looking to explore what theater could potentially be, but I don't want to make the commitment to doing too much right now. If only there was a club on campus that they could attend or join up and really see what theater's about. Elle, do you know of anything like that?
Oh, actually, there's something perfect for that. The UWS Theatre Club. We are actually in the process of getting tickets for local shows. At the moment, we're looking towards UMD's Cabaret. So even if you're just wanting to look at theater, you've never even seen a show before, and you want to experience what it's like to be in the audience, that's something that we offer. Also, our meetings, we will do different games, theater like improv, and just learning about, like you said, all this backstage stuff. And it's a great just introduction because you can go to one, you can go to all, and you have that autonomy to choose, how long you want to stay. And it's just not as much of a commitment if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. So the Theater Club, we're kind of just getting started. We were starting it up this academic school year, aiming to try and create a way for people who maybe don't have as much time available to do theater or don't know if they'll like it, so they don't want to put in the full commitment right away. Something else that the department's been talking about and the Theater Club has also been talking about is doing some student-directed shows in our black box or experimental theater. And we've done something similar in the past with Almost Maine in the spring of 24, where it was an alumni directed it, Josh Porter. But we're trying to continue that. So that would be a perfect way to just try out theater, see if you'll like it, because the time load for those shows would be much less than something on the Mannion stage. The shows will probably be much shorter. And it gives you a chance to just meet the students more directly. Because it's student-directed, so you'll get to meet this close-knit family that we almost have through those shows and through the club, where you can almost always find about a half dozen of us just sitting in the green room of Holden, just being a family, being a big group of friends.
Or if you want to do both the shows and the theater club, you're welcome to do that as well. Sorry.
No, you are totally fine. I'm interviewing you. You're welcome to talk as much as you desire. But I guess what I would say is we're starting to run out of time here in just a little bit. So I want to ask you specifically about 12th Night. It's been kind of an interesting production. I can't say that I'm the smartest person when it comes to theater, but when I think of Shakespeare, I don't exactly think of Jake Edwards's chunky boots that are bedazzled with little white diamonds all over them. And so it's been a bit of, I don't want to call it a hodgepodge, but it's been kind of like putting the pieces of a really bizarre jigsaw puzzle together. So is there anything that you guys want to say about the process or about the actors that you've had in the cast and the sort of resilience that it takes to put together a project like this?
Yeah, so the process of 12th Night kind of started probably end of last spring semester, spring of 24. Sean was very adamant about wanting to do a Shakespeare class, which me and Elle both were in together with a few other actors, as well as he just wanted to do Shakespeare in general. So we kind of started that process really early this year, some of us. But the process we took with it was just kind of this is kind of more of an experimental kind of, I wouldn't say abstract necessarily, but is very symbolic with the set design we ran. One of the great things about Shakespeare is it applies to all time periods. So the stories that Shakespeare tell will be stories that need to be retold for the message they have when it was wrote in the 1600s and in right now and in another 150 years, those stories are still going to be relevant. So being able to create that relevancy between Shakespeare and then being like, hey, we can kind of do our own thing. It doesn't have to look like the Globe Theater. I feel made or let people make these big creative choices. Jack Gilbert, for one, came up with 90% of the jokes he had on stage with his physicality and his ad-libs. Lexi Kelch playing Viola had this unbelievable challenge of being the only straight man on stage full of goofballs, and she did an absolutely incredible job. And I could go through every single cast member and point out how great of a job they did with their specific role, because everyone kind of played into their role in a way that made this show really feel complete.
What made me fall in love with this show was the 70s theme. So you mentioned Jake Edwards' fancy 70s boots, which I just adore. And I thought it was such a unique take on Shakespeare. I've never seen, an intergenerational, like, not 21st century, but not 17th century. Let's do the 70s. So it really, like you said, Andy, gave us permission to play. And it was great being in this little troupe of jokesters that I was in with John and Jack and Gage. We all got to fully just commit to going wild, and Sean encourages that. He won't really reel you back. He'll just keep pushing you forward, and it's just been a great experience doing that for a couple months. Then we got to tweak, and we even weren't too worried about the language, because I've heard a lot of remarks about, it must be hard learning all of those lines. How do you do it? But we had all of winter break to work these lines. Like I said, we have this great community that every single person is willing to run lines with you when, you find times together that work. And so there wasn't any doubt in my mind that the lines would be a problem, and that just made it a really smooth process.
Andy, Elle, you two have been awesome friends of mine for the last 2 years since we were in my first ever show, which was She Kills Monsters here on campus. From a lead to Steve to what was a green gelatinous cube of myself. I want to thank you so much for sitting down with us today and for contributing as much as you have to UWS Theater and to keeping this program alive and strong for all these years.
Thank you. I appreciate having you and everyone for this amazing cast that we've created. Whether we're in a show together or not, it still feels like we're cast members and family regardless.
Yeah, it's been an amazing opportunity to kind of get to share where the department is, where we're headed, and to, again, meet all these close friends and make this really close-knit family of people that you probably wouldn't get to meet otherwise, but everyone gets along so well, and it's been incredible to meet, especially you two, over these last 2 years that we've worked together.
All right, that'll do it for the Promethean Podcast, hosted by Maddie Schaffer and myself, Xavier, Walt. We were joined today by Andy Hill and Elle Evenson. Thank you two so much for sitting down. Safe travels, everyone, and good night.
We'd like to thank our guests for the Promethean Podcast, Andy Hill and also Elle Evenson. Both were actors in the recently performed Shakespeare's Twelfth Night in the Mannion Theater at the University of Wisconsin-Superior, and for your hosts, Xavier, Walt, and also Maddie Schaffer. I'm Tom Hansen, and for more on the Promethean, you can go to uws-promethean.com, check out the past issues and articles, also find out more on the Promethean Podcast, and also the Promethean TV newscasts on the Promethean YouTube channel.